Hey everyone, it's Brandon from the Young Investors Podcast. Myself and Hamish are excited to bring you your weekly rundown of the latest business and investing news from around the world. A quick reminder before we get started that any advice provided by myself is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's right for you. Brandon Kolk is authorised to provide general financial product advice in Australia and is authorised representative 1305795 of Guideway Financial Services Proprietary Limited, AFSL 420367. Please see the description box for my financial services guide. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future investment returns, but with that said, let's get into another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. Hamish, I'm recovering slowly. I'm getting there. How are you going, mate?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, you've had a bad flu-y kind of chesty thing over the past week. It's not fun when it kind of lingers around and messes everything up. Yeah, I've been pretty good. It's always a busy November for people doing content because of all the advertisers start to increase their budgets. You have Black Friday and what is it, Cyber Monday, and then you have Christmas holiday shopping. So it's always a busy time, but it's been good. How are you?
That's actually, you've reminded me. I had completely forgotten, but I'm glad you just said Black Friday because you reminded me that if you guys are interested in new money education and you would like to get one of the courses, you can use the code BF24, Black Friday 24, BF24, and you get 30% off. And that happens for like the next week. Thank you for reminding me of that, Hamish.
Yeah, that sounded so scripted, but it wasn't scripted at all. And now that you've reminded, the best way to do that is to go over to my channel and click on my affiliate link.
That is true.
And then put the code in.
Actually, I haven't checked the affiliate sales in a long time. I need to check that. Remind me to check that.
Yeah, I haven't checked it either. Yeah.
Yes, that's happening. If you want to, you can get Introduction to Stock Analysis, which is our most popular course, or you can get Stock Market Investing for Beginners. But this is not an ad. This is a podcast. Hamish,
yes.
What on earth are we talking about today? I'm going to start talking. We've got this. I don't know if you've seen this social media ban for kids in Australia. Yeah. So I want to talk through what's going on there because it's actually quite close to being signed into law, which is crazy. Yep. And I'm also going to talk about what's just coming out today about Microsoft facing a US antitrust probe. Finally, Microsoft has fallen as well. Here come the recurring expenses. And then what are you covering today?
Yeah, so Comcast, one of the biggest cable companies in the world, actually, is dumping its cable network business. So we'll talk through what is going on with Comcast. And Warren Buffett has done his traditional annual Thanksgiving donation, but this year we actually got a 1,500-word letter to the shareholders as well. So
crazy.
Yeah, we're going to break all of that down.
I haven't read that, so I'll be interested to see what he says. Was it kind of like, I suppose we're spoiling it. Was it kind of like Buffett letter-esque, or was it not as juicy?
No, it's not kind of investing related, more related to his views on kind of philanthropy and there's a couple of other tidbits in there that we'll talk about.
Yeah, cool.
But with that said, today's episode is brought to you by Seeking Alpha, your one-stop shop for stock analysis, market data, and news. Access expert analysis and news for thousands of stocks. View buy, hold, and sell ratings from members, Wall Street analysts, and Seeking Alpha's own algorithm. Screen for stocks using a variety of fundamental and technical analysis metrics. Access 10 years of financial data and company filings, and manage your portfolio by tracking your investments with price alerts so you never miss a buying opportunity again. Click the link in the episode description or head directly to seekingalpha.me/young investors to try Seeking Alpha free for 7 days.
Yes.
Coughing complete there, Brendan.
This is going to be a tough one for JJ to edit. I apologize, JJ. But hopefully it sounds flawless from in your ears at home, listeners, because while Hamish was reading that, I was off screen coughing my lungs up. But I'm back. I am back. And I'm back, Hamish, back to talk about this this social media ban for kids, which is interesting. Obviously, people have different viewpoints on this. So I'll talk us through kind of what's going on. Then I'd be interested to hear your take, your perspective on whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. So it says here, Australia's Parliament is expected to pass a law banning social media for children under 16 by Thursday evening, so literally tonight as we're recording this, even as lawmakers from across the political divide express discomfort at the rushed nature. The House of Representatives passed the bill by a sweeping margin with 102 votes in favour and only 13 against the legislation. It is now with the Senate, where it's expected to pass during the Parliament's final session of the year today. How about that? Final session of the year. And it's not even December. It's the 28th of November and they're having their final session of the year.
They're already done.
Sorry, guys. We've got holidays to get to.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to get to the holiday house, get down to the beach.
Yeah.
No, but I think rushed is kind of the right word because I know this has been something that's been spoken about for years. I mean, that you can go back and see different politicians talking about this for a long time. But particularly in the last kind of 2 months, I would say, it seems like it all of a sudden became a reality. For a long time, it was kind of one of those policies that people just kind of throw around, like, oh, we should ban this or we should increase this tax or whatever. But yeah, all of a sudden, it's kind of suddenly become potentially a reality. So
yeah, it says under the proposed law, minors will be prohibited from setting up accounts on all major social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Reddit, even if they obtain parental permission. Meta, TikTok, and X have all expressed reservations about the bill, with Elon Musk calling the legislation alarming and adding that his company had, quote, serious concerns as to its lawfulness, potentially setting up a court challenge to the legislation. In a statement posted online on Tuesday, Meta said it was, quote, concerned the government is rushing this legislation without adequate consultation or evidence, and there are still many unknowns with respect to its implementation, end quote. They also say the government's approach will likely require each app provider to collect personal identification or biometric data from all Australians in order to prevent under 16s from accessing their services, an inefficient and burdensome process for everyone, a Meta spokesperson said. Meta also pointed to a policy it introduced earlier this year on its Instagram platform, which was Instagram teen accounts. So they're already kind of thinking about this, but apparently it's not enough. Instagram teen accounts, which limits who can contact teenagers via their accounts and attempts to moderate the content that young users see. In a post shared...
Attempts,
yeah. In a post shared last week on the X platform that he owns, tech billionaire Elon Musk also condemned the Australian bill and said it seemed to him, quote, like a backdoor way to control access to the internet by all Australians, end quote. What else have I got? Other independent bodies and non-profit organisations have also taken aim at the bill, voicing concern that young people's human rights could be restricted by it. So, for example, it's quite interesting, the Australian Human Rights Commission, an independent government body, expressed its own, quote, serious reservations over the proposed law in an analysis published last week. Quote, there are less restrictive alternatives available that could achieve the aim of protecting children and young people from online harms, but without having such a significant negative impact on other human rights. One example of an alternative response would be to place a legal duty of care on social media companies, the analysis said. We also need to help children and young people better navigate online spaces by ensuring the national curriculum includes a specific focus on teaching digital literacy and online safety. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. It definitely seems as though the government is saying, look, I don't think it's crazy that obviously teenagers or children, if they are exposed to social media accounts, there will be some bad stuff that will happen. I don't think anyone's denying that. I mean, that's just the reality. But then the question is the right way to go about it, as the Australian government thinks, to simply not allow kids to have social media accounts?
Yeah, it seems like the way that maybe they're going about it is probably not the way to go about it. But I mean, there's certainly a problem, I think, or something to be said about kind of algorithmic social media platforms not really having, I don't think they really have much of an ability to moderate the content or to like grade the content based on, in the same way that you might like grade like a movie, like whether it's G, PG, M or MA15 plus or something like that. I think when it comes to like algorithmic content, that job is extremely hard. And so it does raise a lot of questions as to, certainly, kids, if kids are using Instagram Reels, there's a lot of content on Instagram Reels that I see that certainly they shouldn't be able to see. And the question is, can Meta properly moderate that? And if not, then maybe that is a product that young people shouldn't be accessing. But in terms of the kind of like the 16 plus age, and then having people do, what is it, like biometric, potentially like doing some kind of like digital ID kind of thing, I think that's like an excessive way to go about it. I think that's a step
too hard.
It's too hard. I think it's just a step too far.
Yeah.
But I'm not against kind of the government saying, hey, we've like looked at these platforms and we don't think that children under this certain age should be using them. And then it's up to the parents whether, they basically make the account for the kid and they skirt it, right? I think that's probably the way I would go about it if I was the government. I would say, hey, we're coming out and saying like Instagram Reels, like probably if you're under 14, 15, whatever age it is, you probably shouldn't be on that. But ultimately, it's up to the parents. We're not gonna ID you like you're going into the casino or something. And so that's kind of my view on it. But it as I said at the beginning, it's like it's a tricky thing because they're algorithmic content. It's not like you're stopping a kid from going into the theater and watching an R-rated movie. It's not. It's where the content has been reviewed and it has there's certain guidelines. The kid is probably watching like 1,000 pieces of content a day, and there's no way that Meta is able to grade each of those pieces accurately. So kids are going to be exposed to stuff that they shouldn't be. That's also just the internet, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the tricky bit is that where young kids, they're quite impressionable because they're obviously still developing and finding their own independence and discovering who they are. And you're right that these apps are very algorithmic, so they figure out what someone is kind of thinking, and then they basically just bang you down that rabbit hole until you're just like complete. Because we see that even with our own politics or my reels or Tasha's reels or TikToks that we get. Totally different because it's obviously detected that I watch these type of reels for longer or ones with this political viewpoint or whatever it is, and then it just shoves a whole bunch more down my throat. Whereas for hers, it's different because she's obviously engaged with it differently. So I think that's the danger is that when, if a kid is like, I don't know, exploring or trying to figure out who they are or what they believe, and then all of a sudden they're just like chucked down that rabbit hole. But I don't think that banning kids. First of all, I don't think it's going to work. I don't for one second think that this is going to do anything. It's kind of like, I don't know, like drugs even. I mean, drugs are illegal. If someone wants to use drugs, they can still access it. Like they're gonna find a way.
Yes.
So I don't know. Like, and also I agree with you. I fundamentally I think let parents parent their children.
I think that's the one thing I do like about this. The one thing that I like about it, most of it I don't like, but the one thing I like about it is I think a lot of parents just haven't really given much thought to how dangerous some of these platforms can be if just used completely unmonitored. I think for maybe not for a 16-year-old kid, but like for someone who's 13, let's say, because most of these, like Instagram has an age you can sign up at 13. Right. So for a 13-year-old, I think it is good to maybe put it in the spotlight to show parents like, hey, like maybe just like look at like some of these platforms because, as I said, for me, it's mostly just the algorithmic. It's like a slot machine for your kid in terms of like content. And as you said, it kind of pushes you into kind of echo chambers of content that you've shown a little bit of interest in. And I think, for someone who's very young and who's still developing their worldview, that can be quite dangerous, I think. Not getting just a broad view of opinions on things, but like having an algorithm feed you constantly a pipeline of something that you showed a slight interest in. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of my view on that kind of content.
The way I see it is like the way that I perceive what the government's role maybe should be in this is to make the resources, the educational resources for parents, kind of like what they do with, you're having a first child, you're having a baby. The government has made so many resources for, people to go and look at to understand what the hell they're going to have to do to, parent a child. It's like, do that. Like, your kids are signing up for social media. Here's what you might want to know. Here's the education, the free education that you can access that, tells you about online safety that you can teach your children. Then it's up to you how to parent your kid, I feel like that's a more, whether or not these resources get used. But anyway, it's very interesting. What else have I got? This is pretty crazy. The social media giants will be responsible for policing the ban and could face fines of up to 50 million Australian dollars, so 32.5 million USD, for failing to enforce it. So that'll be interesting. I wonder if we'll see some recurring expenses there.
Added to the list.
Yeah. Despite the criticism, the legislation remains popular amongst Australians, according to recent polling data. A YouGov survey released Tuesday showed 77% of Australians backed the ban on under 16s, and 87% said they supported the introduction of stronger penalties for social media companies that fail to apply with regulations. So there you go, Hamish. Oh, JJ, I'm sorry, mate. Thanks for chopping out all of my coughing because I've been coughing a lot. I'm going to chuck it over to you, Hamish. Tell me something I don't know. Please help me.
Yeah, let's talk about Comcast because Comcast obviously being one of the big telecommunications companies in the US. It's actually the fourth biggest broadcast and cable television company in the world. Has confirmed its plans to spin off its cable channels, which is kind of one of the latest moves, or I guess the latest move we've seen amongst these kind of legacy media companies shuffling assets around, doing mergers, selling assets here, buying assets there. This has always been the case with media businesses, but it is interesting to see that, especially when it comes to the cable business, which has been, I wouldn't say struggling in some aspects, but doing well in others, which I'll talk about. It is interesting to see this move from a very large player. As I said, they're the fourth biggest broadcast and cable company in the world, and they basically own every part of the pipeline in terms of media. So they own Xfinity, which is kind of a telecommunications company with phone, internet, cable, TV bundles. So they actually sell the cable bundles, but then they also own kind of the distribution and content side. So they own NBC Universal. So that's all kind of these different cable networks and channels. NBC, which is a broadcast free-to-air channel actually, but CNBC, E! Entertainment, MSNBC, and a huge portfolio of other channels. They also own, of course, the massive film studio, Universal Pictures. They own DreamWorks Animation, and they have their streaming service, which is Peacock, which I don't think anybody's signed up to that one yet, but they're working on it. They're trying to get their first subscriber. One day they'll get there.
Yeah, crazy. I didn't realize they do so much. I've never really looked into Comcast in a deep way before, but I didn't realize they also do the Xfinity business. Crazy.
Yeah, it's they're massive. It's it is interesting to see when you have these businesses that just own kind of every part of the pipeline, from like the studios that make the content to the networks that host the content, to actually the cable bundle and the subscription. So they own all of all parts of the pipeline in terms of content. But they are starting to get rid of some of those assets. So in a quarterly earnings call a few weeks ago, this is when this first kind of came up, they said that they were considering a split of the cable networks specifically. And last week they announced that they'll be moving forward with this spin-off. So that's the news this week, is that they've confirmed essentially that, yes, this is what they'll be doing.
Interesting.
They'll be spinning off most of their cable networks, so CNBC, MSNBC, E! Entertainment, Oxygen, the USA Network, the Golf Channel. There's a huge portfolio of channels that they own, a very large percentage of the cable channels that people subscribe to in the US. They're also selling off some of their digital assets, so they own Fandango, Rotten Tomatoes. They own. I didn't actually know that, to be honest.
Interesting.
Which is they'll be selling that off. Golf Now and Sports Engine, as well as a couple of other digital assets.
How the heck does Rotten Tomatoes make money? I'm assuming just advertising, right?
Yeah, I must just be advertising.
Must be.
And then they artificially rate their shows better than other shows.
Yeah.
Control the narrative.
Slapped with a big old antitrust fine.
Yeah. It's like Bezos owning the Washington Post. It's like, you get to control the narrative,
Control it. Yeah.
Control the reviews of the shows. No, I'm sure they don't do that, but
but maybe.
I don't know how it makes money. Actually, I guess just advertising. I'm not sure. Maybe they have a subscription. I'm not actually entirely sure.
Oh, surely not. But Rotten Tomatoes. I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
Okay, so it'll include their kind of cable networks and some of these digital assets, but it specifically won't include their broadcast TV network NBC. So that's kind of their free-to-air massive network, and it won't include the Peacock streaming service. So those assets will remain with the Comcast entity, as well as, of course, all of the actual studios that produce content. So things like DreamWorks and Universal. And the combined spun-off businesses once combined into an entity is expected to generate about $7 billion a year in revenue. So it's actually quite a large chunk of the business that they'll be spinning off and getting rid of in terms of at least on the revenue side. The chairman of NBC Universal will become the new CEO of this entity. He said, as a standalone company, these outstanding assets will be better positioned to serve our audience and drive shareholder returns in this incredibly dynamic media environment across news, sports, and entertainment. Is that not the most PR statement? I do find it funny when executives make these statements and it's actually a nothing statement. It's almost like, why did you even make the statement?
Yeah, it's like you could literally copy paste that statement and just take out incredibly dynamic. You could put in a different for something else, not media environment, but something else across news, sports, and entertainment. I could literally be like, Elon Musk has said he's spinning off some of the assets of SpaceX as a standalone company with these outstanding assets. We will be better positioned to serve our audiences and drive shareholder returns in this incredibly dynamic space environment across satellite telecommunications, rocket launches, and defense contracts.
Yeah.
You can do that with any company.
Yeah.
You could say, Brandon and NewMoney, as a standalone company with these outstanding assets, will be better positioned to serve our audiences and drive shareholder returns in this incredibly dynamic media environment across YouTube content, sponsorships, course sales, and editing clients.
Yeah. Just use the template. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. That is such a wishy-washy piece of garbage.
So, yeah. It's also a very interesting way to describe the spin-off of basically a dying business. It's incredibly dynamic. Dynamic's the positive, Yeah. It's it's dynamic. It's dynamically nosediving into the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so speaking of that, why are they doing this? Well, the cable business is kind of one of the areas of this media pipeline that's been in kind of terminal decline, or at least it looks like it's been in terminal decline over the past decade or so, suffering from, of course, an acceleration of cord cutting of cable subscriptions. Comcast lost 365,000 television customers in the third quarter of this year.
Jeez, that's
the cable industry overall, get this, lost 4 million subscribers in the first 6 months of this year. In 6 months.
Wow.
And so, you can think of at its peak, the US and Canada combined, I think it was, had 110 million pay TV households. So losing 4 million in 6 months is a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah,
that's quite the rapid decline. And of course, it's not surprising. I mean, you can get a lot of the content that's on these cable bundles for far cheaper now if you just pick and choose, streaming services and subscriptions here and there. And so it shouldn't be surprising. But in terms of subscribers, there's been massive accelerating declines. It is interestingly though still a cash cow. So if you exclude the Summer Olympics coverage, which added a huge amount of viewership to a lot of these networks, but if you kind of exclude that, revenue for TV networks for Comcast still grew 5%. So even if you take out the Olympics, I think they grew. I can't exactly remember the figure, but it was quite significant with the Olympics. But even if you take the Olympics out, they still grew by 5% through
solid.
kind of advertising and raising prices for their smaller and smaller customer base. So it is still a cash cow, and it can still be kind of milked, I think, for a little bit longer. But Comcast, I think, is starting to realize that eventually the bleeding of the customers will become a tipping point where revenues will start to decline, and it's going to be kind of a spiral down.
I see. Yeah.
And so that's why they're kind of making this move now. So yeah, there you go.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big move. Disney recently said they kind of had no interest in doing this kind of thing, so spinning off some of their assets. Warner Brothers CEO, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but he said the same thing. He thinks that the cable business is and the cable networks are going to continue to be a critical part of the overall Warner Brothers business. And so the other media companies are saying we're not going to do this yet, but Comcast is kind of the first to move. And I don't think it should be too surprising, actually, that Comcast is the first to move, given that they do have that added kind of cable business. They're more than just a media company. They're a broader telecommunications company. And so it would be kind of ridiculous, I think, for them to kind of bet all of their chips on this kind of dying cable business when they've already got all these other parts of the pipeline. And so it does make sense that they're the first to make this kind of move.
And the one bit of information that I know you guys have been sweating on for this whole time, I did check, and it is just advertising revenue from Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, yeah. I was holding out for that one.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay, yeah. So what is it? Advertising and then manipulating reviews. That's the two revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It did say that they used to maybe be able to buy movie tickets through Rotten Tomatoes, so they would take a slice of fees there, but I'm not sure if that still happens. It just said advertising. Yeah, very interesting, Hamish. Thanks for covering that. Should we move on and talk about Microsoft?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Well, tell me some. Who's the latest victim of antitrust?
This FTC complaint is wow. It's damning, and it's so specific, and it's like they've got him. They're going to take him to the cleaners. They've just got him on all counts. No, it's very much not like that. In fact, the more I read into this, the more I was just like, what? But anyway, let me tell you about it. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission has opened an antitrust investigation of Microsoft, drilling into everything from the company's cloud computing and software licensing businesses to cybersecurity offerings and artificial intelligence products. After more than a year of conducting informal interviews with competitors and business partners, antitrust enforcers have crafted a detailed request to force Microsoft to turn over information, according to people familiar with the matter. The demand, which is hundreds of pages long, has been sent to the company after FTC Chair Lena Khan signed off, said one of the people. The Microsoft information demand is said to be one of Khan's parting shots She's expected to be replaced in the Trump administration after helming one of the most aggressive pushes against consolidated corporate power the agency has delivered in decades. So this, I don't know. I was like, okay, because it was breaking news everywhere. Like I saw it on every news site this morning. It's like big, FTC antitrust probe into Microsoft. I was like, okay, what the heck's going on here? And then I just kept reading article after article, and everyone's just kind of trying to guess what they're going after. Like no one's like, the FTC has said they're going after this because they think that. There's nothing like that. It's just, and even from this first paragraph, it's just like they've opened drilling into everything from the company's cloud computing. It's like they've opened a sweeping antitrust investigation.
Yeah, I feel like the FTC just every couple of months just like spins a wheel with all like the tech like business names on it, and they're like, who's getting an investigation now? Because we've literally seen like I think there's 2 antitrust lawsuits against Google or against Alphabet. There's one against Meta, I believe. There was one against Apple. It's so Microsoft. It's not surprising that Microsoft's the we hadn't really heard too much from Microsoft, so it's their turn. They're up.
So it makes me wonder, okay, what is this investigation, right? That was my question. I was just reading article after article, and this is like the best I could scrape from multiple articles. So it says, the FTC is examining allegations the software giant is potentially abusing its market power in productivity software by imposing punitive licensing terms to prevent customers from moving their data from its Azure cloud service to other competitive platforms. A key focus of the current probe is Microsoft's bundling of its popular Office productivity and security software with its cloud offerings, according to people familiar with the information request. Competitors have complained that Microsoft's licensing terms and bundling of software with cloud services makes it harder for rival authentication and cybersecurity companies to compete. So there's a little bit there maybe. It says here, NetChoice, a lobbying group that represents online companies including Amazon and Google, which compete with Microsoft in cloud computing, criticized Microsoft's licensing policies and its integration of AI tools into its Office and Outlook. Quote, given that Microsoft is the world's largest software company, dominating in productivity and operating system software, the scale and consequences of its licensing decisions are extraordinary, the group said. Google in September complained to the European Commission about Microsoft's practices, saying that it made customers pay a 400% markup to keep running Windows servers on rival cloud computing operators and gave them later and more limited security updates. So,
okay,
there's bits and pieces there, but it doesn't sound particularly concrete. It literally does just sound like a probe. Like, we're going to just see what's going on, and then we'll figure it out later, but we're sure you're doing something a little bit dodgy. Like, I don't know. Is that a washed opinion? What's your take? What do you think?
No, that sounds about right. I mean, I think whenever these kind of investigations first start, they sound so vague because basically they're just trying to go fishing in like Microsoft's like confidential data. Like they're just trying to like get a judge to approve like access to a bunch of emails and stuff, and then hopefully they can just fish around and find something, which is not the way that the law should probably be implemented. You shouldn't just be fishing in people's private or companies' private data to find something that they're doing wrong. But that tends to be how it goes, especially with these like antitrust kind of lawsuits. So. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's something there. It's hard to say. I mean, definitely you want the FTC looking into these situations where companies own like a lot of different components of like the same business, and where they can, they own the platform and then they own like the marketplace as well, or they own the device and they own the marketplace, and then so they can and they're competing against other other companies, and they can give them unfavorable terms. But it is very much a case by case basis, and it sounds like we'd need a little bit more information from the FTC before really knowing if they've done anything wrong.
Yeah, if they're deliberately trying to make it painful for their customers to take their data and take it off platform to a rival, then I feel like that's something that should probably be looked into. I don't feel like they should be able to use their power to make that process annoying. And I can understand if they're making, clients pay a 400% markup if they decide to switch to a different service. Like that's just a bit rough, or they're making like the servers not work as well or something like that. But I feel I'd agree with you that, like, generally speaking, you probably have to like go in. You can't just be like, what's that quote that Elon Musk has been throwing around lately? Like, show me the person, I'll show you the crime. It's like, you can't just like pick on someone and say, we'll figure out the crime later. It's like, surely you have to like think of what has this person done? Why are we arresting this person? We have to have a reason why we're arresting them, right? As opposed to just like, we think you might be doing something like this, so we're just going to go have a look. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's a washed opinion. I don't know.
No, that's completely correct. It's just the way it goes sometimes. But I'm sure we'll definitely, I think, hear more about this over the coming weeks. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be a 1 week story or something. This is probably going to be something we'll hear about for the next 10 years, just like every other antitrust kind of lawsuit that's been going on with. I think there was an update with Google's one just recently. What was the update? I think the FTC was pushing for them to spin off Chrome. I think they were saying that they shouldn't be able to own Chrome and the other Google entities. So I guess we'll hear more about that as well soon.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I've got to say for Microsoft. The rest is just saying that basically just the article saying, well, they're now joining all the other big players that are also facing these recurring expenses.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, over to you. What's this Warren Buffett stuff? What's happening?
So we actually got a second letter to the shareholders from Buffett this year. Of course, Buffett puts out with the annual report near the beginning of the year his traditional letter to the shareholders, which is obviously quite a long letter where he talks about the businesses that within Berkshire, but also often gives some kind of value investing principles, like sprinkle some principles in there as well. But this is a little bit different. This comes along with his annual Thanksgiving donation, which is something that, he does, as I said, he does every single year. But fortunately, we got a nice 1,500-word letter from him where he provides some interesting insights. Not investing-related insights, but interesting nonetheless. In terms of his donation, he made a donation of Berkshire Hathaway stock, the equivalent of $900 million, to 4 of his family's foundations. So 1.5 million B shares to the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, which was named after his late wife, and then 300,000 shares to each of his 3 children's organizations. So the Sherwood Foundation, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, and Novo Foundation. And it was basically the same size as last year, slightly bigger. Last year he gave 800 million. So he's slightly topped it. And this also is on top of $4.6 billion that he donated in June of this year. So he's been, as he kind of pledged, back in 2006, he pledged to give away 99% of his wealth. He has continued to honor that in terms of giving away more and more of his the assets that he has. His personal stockpile of stock is now 206,363 A share. Maybe it's B shares. Actually,
would be A shares, wouldn't it?
Oh, A shares, yeah.
Would be A shares. 206,000.
A shares, yeah. Worth $149 billion, which means he's now given away 56.6% of his shares since that 2006 pledge. Sorry, my dog's going a bit crazy down here.
Lucy, join us. Go on. Where is she?
She's just being restless.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so he's given away more than 50% of his shares now since that pledge. So he's making progress.
Nice.
He's making progress towards giving away the 99%. And then, as I said, he also he provided a letter. So There was a couple of things he spoke about. He provided advice to parents. He said, I have one further suggestion for all parents, whether they are of modest or staggering wealth. When your children are mature, have them read your will before you sign it. He was basically suggesting that involving your children in your will process can help make sure that they understand your logic and responsibilities before you pass away. So it was just kind of... I guess that's something that, unsurprisingly, he's been kind of thinking a lot about recently. So he just wanted to kind of provide that that piece of advice. He also warned against building family dynasties. He believes that family wealth dynasties could have negative consequences, such as eroding personal growth, complicating relationships. Meanwhile, they also create societal uncertainties, as it's unforeseen how future generations will choose to distribute such wealth. Specifically, he said, I've never wished to create a dynasty or pursue any plan that extended beyond the children. I know the three well and trust them completely. Future generations are of another matter. Who can foresee their priorities, intelligence, and fidelity of successive generations to deal with the distribution of extraordinary wealth amid what may be far different philanthropic landscape? So essentially saying it's a bad idea to want to kind of have these like multi-generational situations where you have these like billionaire families because eventually you may get to a generation where the priorities aren't exactly aligned with what what the person who created the wealth maybe had in mind. And that can be it can be dangerous. I guess it could also be really good as well. But as he said, it provides like this uncertainty.
Definitely.
Rather than just donating and distributing that wealth in a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want your wealth to, I guess, fall into the wrong hands, for lack of a better phrase, or for it to start being used in a way that you did not want it to be used.
Yeah. He also just reflected on his luck throughout his life. He said he felt confident that he'd be rich early in his life, but he never dreamed of the wealth that has been obtainable in the US in recent decades. And then just a small comment at the end. He made a comment about the power of compound interest, as Mr. Buffett usually does. He said, the real action from compounding takes place in the final 20 years of a lifetime. By not stepping on any banana peels, I now remain in circulation at 94 with huge sums of savings. Call these units of deferred consumption that can be passed along to others who were given a very short straw at birth. So the way he kind of views his wealth is that he's been extraordinarily lucky. And now he gets that opportunity to kind of distribute that to people who have not. And so, as I said, the letter is, it's not really an investing kind of shareholder letter in the traditional sense of Buffett, but certainly worth a read. There's some valuable insights on wealth distribution and family matters and that sort of thing that I certainly found interesting.
Yeah, nice. I don't think I have too much to add, but it's good to hear that kind of stuff. I definitely look up to Warren Buffett. He's one of the few that I genuinely do look up to. There's a lot of people a lot of media, not a lot of media actually, most media is favourable for Warren Buffett, but a lot of people that are just, they're so quick to flinch, like, oh, rich person bad, like Warren Buffett, billionaire bad, but having really studied the guy and read a lot about him and watched a lot of his interviews. He's definitely one of the people that I highly regard and look up to.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, with that said,
should we wrap it up?
We should.
Today? Brandon's been. I'm not sure how much of it's probably going to come through in the podcast. Probably
hopefully none.
Hopefully none of it. But Brandon's been really struggling with his with his coughing. So I think we'll wrap it up there for today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. As always, thanks to Seeking Alpha for sponsoring this episode. SeekingAlpha.me/young investors if you want to try a free trial and get a discount for Seeking Alpha. Thanks, Brandon, for joining me. As always,
commitment to the cause,
and we'll be back next week with another episode. See you later, guys.
See you guys.